So shalom again, everyone from Galilee. This is Amir. Let's start this with a prayer and we will continue. So Father, we thank you so much that you are such a good Father, that you love your children, that you have set that race before us, and you ask us to run with endurance, seeking the things which are above and looking at Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith, who had to go through all that here on earth and to endure that guilt and shame and despise all of that, yet he kept being pure, and he's the only one who ever fulfilled the law. So he's now seated at the right hand of you, Father, and our eyes should be fixed on him, the author and the finisher of our faith, the Aleph and the Tav, the Alpha and the Omega. So we thank you, Father, that we can come before you this morning as your children, here from Galilee, from Israel. It's quite amazing. And we ask that you will preside over everything, the technical aspect, the content, and speak to the hearts of your people today. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. So here we are. I'm very excited. This is an update after quite a long time. I think the last time I spoke to you may have been from Australia, if I'm not mistaken. It was a tremendous ministry tour. I was so happy to visit people that have been in touch with us as a ministry for the longest time and have been praying for my coming to that fifth continent and to speak. Next time I'll be there. I'll also visit other places. But there are several things I would like to update you on, and we're going to start things that are, by the way, Middle East related always. Remember, 99% of the Bible speaks of either Israel or the Middle East when it comes to geographical location. And I know that in the New Testament, we've got all the, travelings of Paul to the different churches, but that is doctrine. All that he talked about there is doctrine. It's not about what's going to happen there. It's about the doctrine. It's about the message and the gospel. But regarding events and things that will happen somewhere that we need to pay attention to and we need to understand and look forward to, it's all about the Middle East. If I may say, it's either Israel or its neighborhood. So it's not a coincidence why it's called Middle East Current Events Update, because I want you to stay focused on that which happens in this region, no matter where you're at around the world. There is no way you can ever understand the Bible or really follow Jesus without truly having the desire to understand what is going on here in this part of the world, which was such an important part of Jesus's teaching regarding the question of the disciples. Master, what are the signs of the end of the age? And so I would like to, of course, he talked about global events, but he definitely narrowed down to the words of the prophets. And he always encouraged us not to put aside the words of the prophet. He rebuked the disciples that were on their way to Emmaus, telling them, "O foolish ones and slow of heart to believe that which was written by the prophets." So the prophets predominantly spoke about Israel and its surroundings. And so this is why we're giving that update. First thing I would like to address is the whole issue of the Temple Mount. And that will bring me to the next topic, which is the visit of King Abdullah II to Ramallah just 2 days ago. So first of all, as you know, I always said that we need to be careful with our coverage of the Temple Mount crisis, because it is not about the Third Temple right now. It is not about Israel taking over, Israel's sovereignties, it is being reinstalled there. No, it is one more incident out of many. See, you don't live in Israel, you may not know, but we are so used to the Temple Mount being an area of conflict. I mean, the whole second Palestinian Intifada uprising, which started in September or October of 2000, started because of the visit of Ariel Sharon, our late Prime Minister, to the Temple Mount. And it started a almost 3 years of circle of vicious violence where we lost more than 1,000 Israeli lives and much more Palestinians, or many more. So my point is, this 5 days to 12 days incident that we just had was really nothing compares to what we've had before and what we may have in the future. The Temple Mount today is not a place where the Spirit of God is. It's not even a place where Israel should seek to dominate or to have control of, but it will happen eventually. The Bible is clearly indicating that it is trampled under the feet of the Gentiles right now. And the Bible is clearly indicating that the next time we're going to have a little bit of sovereignty there will be a time of delusion and a time of testing and a time of trial for Israel. This is Jacob's trouble. It's going to start with 3.5 years of complete deception of fake peace, which will allow us to build a temple. And I'm not even sure we're going to have full sovereignty there. We may have the Jews visiting their temple and others visiting theirs, and who knows? We don't know that. When the Bible is silent, we better be silent. So if the Bible doesn't give us the complete description of how things will be, what we do know is that it has to be during the time of the Antichrist, because the Antichrist himself will go in and at a certain point after 3.5 years cut that peace deal and will go into the temple demanding to be worshipped as God in that temple. And this is the testing time of Israel. Is this your God? Is this your Messiah? Is this your deliverer? And if not, and if God is Messiah, and if Messiah is part of God, and you see that you thought this is Messiah, but now he declares himself as God. Now you already rejected one that declared himself equal to God. Now this one is going to kill you, while the other one came to save you. This is the process of God dealing with Israel. And many of them will flee to the desert. Many of them will be persecuted by the Antichrist. Many of them will perish because of all of that persecution. But my point is, until that moment, the Temple Mount is not in our hands, and Jerusalem is a problem. And it's not until Islam will stop being a dominant world religion, it's not until then that things will be not be the same as they are now. So it's same old, same old. We may have more conflicts, we may have more problems, we may have more tension rise up, but every time something happens, we're getting 10 times closer to our going out of here. You see, in 2000, when Ariel Sharon came to the Temple Mount, Russia and Turkey and Iran were not about a mile away from Israel. In 2000, we didn't have the tension that we have in the world today. That was before 9/11 even. In 2000, things were not the same. Israel today is different than Israel was. Today, Israel fits 10 times more into what Ezekiel spoke of than it was 15, 16, 17 years ago. So regarding the Temple Mount and the next temple, we have to be very careful in the way we analyze things. Things are back to normal. Muslims go to worship, Jews go to visit, Christians can visit. But this is not a place of God. It's a place given to Satan, I believe, to confuse. He's confusing, he's deceiving, it's a place of violence, it's a place of satanic worship, it's a place that is not, when Jesus will come back and his feet will stand on Mount of Olives, this Temple Mount, with whatever will stand on it, will be gone. The Bible describes how the Temple Mount that we have today, known as Mount Moriah, is going to be gone, because once that earthquake take place, when his feet will stand on Mount of Olives, according to Zechariah 14, Mount of Olives will split, and then the river of life will come out of that Mount Moriah underneath the temple, just as Ezekiel prophesied in chapter 47 and Zechariah prophesied in chapter 14. So how can a water come out unless that mountain is gone? And it's interesting because the indication from the Bible is that there will be another sort of Mount Moriah that will be risen from underneath. This is why, right now the eastern gate from the time of Jesus is buried underneath the eastern gate that is now standing, which was built by the Turks less than 500 years ago. Just as the book of Lamentation chapter 2 says, Jerusalem, her gates are sunk under the rubble. But then Psalm 24 says, lift up your heads, O you gates, and be lifted up, and the King of glory will walk through it. Who is the King of glory? The Lord. So we can see that there will be a major shift, the tectonic shift over there in that area that will take away that which is standing today in the Temple Mount. I don't have to destroy the dome. It will have to be gone when that earthquake will take place. And the third temple, which from some strange reason Christians are excited about and even donate money to, the house of the Antichrist. Why would we want to take part of that thing or even support it? I'm not sure why, but anyway, so the temple, everything is back to normal. But there's only two figures in the Middle East that actually wish that the Temple Mount crisis will continue. And one of them, is the Palestinian president, who is so weak politically that thought, this is a great chance for me to divert the attention and all the criticism that is pointed at me towards Israel. There's nothing better than speaking against Israel and, of course, raising Jerusalem as the issue. But a lot of people are pretty surprised about King Abdullah II's visit to Ramallah just 2 days ago. All the headline says that following the Temple Mount crisis, Jordan's Abdullah visits Abbas in Ramallah. He came and they were all standing underneath the big picture of Jerusalem and the Al-Aqsa Mosque and everything. But it's interesting, why would these two that on a normal basis are not the best friends, because Jordan is having peace with Israel and Jordan is a country that respects international law, or supposed to, and Jordan is friendly with Israel, and Palestinians are not, happy about it. But suddenly the Jordanian king felt the urge to go and speak to the Palestinian leader. And that has to do, with the fact that 70% of the Jordanians are Palestinians. And the second reason is something that most of you never heard of. And let me explain that. Well, you may not know, but on November 4th of last year, 2016, there was a convoy of 4 American SUVs, military SUVs, with American soldiers from the Amir base in southern Jordan. And we're talking about roughly 240 kilometers south of Amman. And they left the base, the military base there, which is, by the way, guarded by Jordanians. They opened their gate and they left like every day. This is a Jordanian air base. And secretly, there's several dozen of American soldiers over there, special forces known as the Green Berets. And these Green Berets are there to help the Jordanians in their fight against ISIS, as well as their preparation against any invasion that might come from the side of Iran or the Syrians backed by the Hezbollah. And it's interesting because the Jordanian soldiers knows the Green Beret soldiers. I mean, they're there every day. They leave in the morning, they come back in the evening. That day was not supposed to be a different day, but it was a different day because as they came back a few hours later, one of the Air Force soldiers, the Jordanian guard there, opened fire, literally chased after some of the soldiers and killed 3 American soldiers within the airbase of the Jordanian military, where everybody knew the Americans. Now, when this is an incident that was reported very poorly in the media, immediately the Jordanians started with a whole cover-up story of, the Americans started, they opened fire first. Then they realized that the video got to the hands of the Americans, and they know that that's not the case. So the Jordanians had to change their version several times, to the point, and remember, that was November. That was before the elections. Then came the elections in America, and Donald Trump is the president. And now Donald Trump is not Barack Obama. He's not a wishy-washy. He's not... King Abdullah understands, I'm facing someone much tougher. I cannot afford losing this guy's support. Jordan relies heavily on American support. So King Abdullah, I don't know if you know that, he was the first Middle Eastern leader that ever visited Donald Trump in the White House. Why? He invited himself. He rushed himself in order to explain what happened, and the Americans asked him, you must indict that soldier. He must stand for trial. This is unacceptable. So he had to go back home. Now what's the problem? The problem is that the soldier, whose name is Ma'arak Sami Salem Abu Thaya El-Hawitat, 39-year-old, the last name El-Hawitat means he's a Bedouin from the tribe of El-Hawitat. If you've been to Jordan, you know this is one of the most respectable and one of the most ancient Bedouin tribes in Jordan, who claims to be of the founding generation of the Hashemite kingdom of Jordan. And they see themselves as the, elite of the Jordanians. And suddenly one of them is standing for trial for what? Killing what? An infidel. Let's make it very clear. That tribe will not accept a 39-year-old member of them to stand in trial for killing Americans. Why? Because they are Americans. Because they're infidels. How can a Muslim stand for a trial by Muslims for killing non-Muslims? You see, you're probably saying, wait a minute, but he killed them. It makes no difference. You must change the way you think in order to understand how things are viewed in the Middle East. For the Muslims, the presence of American is unacceptable to begin with. And so whatever happens to the Americans, no Muslim can ever be blamed for it, because they are in Muslim territory. So exactly like Israel, when the 2 Israeli policemen were killed on the Temple Mount, for the Muslim world, that didn't really bother at all, because these are 2 Israeli policemen that are at the entrance to the 3rd holiest site in the world for Islam. Therefore, they should die. Nobody talked about the 2 Israeli policemen. Everybody talked about the gunmen that were killed and about the fact that the Temple Mount was closed for 24 hours. Nobody cared about 2 fatalities, 2 people that lost their lives and their families and their children. So why? Because Muslims are allowed to kill non-Muslims in a Muslim place according to the way they think. There's no way Israel can be the sovereign power in a place that is a Muslim place. We will not accept any sign of sovereignty, neither metal detectors nor cameras, nothing. That is the same thing with what happened in Jordan. Now, you have to understand the Jordanian king is under heavy criticism, and there's so many protests on the street, and he felt that literally the earth is burning under his feet, and so what he did, that incident of the Israeli guard in the embassy of Israel in Amman was the best thing that ever happened to him. Because that incident, adding to the Temple Mount incident, caused him to become the star of the region and of Islam by convincing Israel to remove the metal detectors. And now, by visiting Ramallah, he basically, again, wants to keep the attention of his people in Jordan and the Palestinian people in the West Bank and Gaza to keep their attention focused on Israel and on the Temple Mount crisis. They're trying artificially to somehow keep that crisis alive, but it's not really working, because down the road, Palestinians want to go to work, they want to go to worship and pray, and things are back to normal. So you have to understand something. So many things that are happening in the Middle East, so many meetings, so many visits, so many speeches given, it's all facade to problems that people have back home. and behind the scenes, there's much more that is going on. And so that's the story about the visit of King Abdullah to Ramallah. By the way, he never visited Jerusalem. He never visited Prime Minister Netanyahu. He showed the world that he cares more about the Palestinians, that's why he came for. Quite interesting, but again, I'm not surprised. I prefer to let them deal with the way they want to deal with their own problems, and just to mind my own business in this area. Yesterday, the U.S. and North Korea on the brink of war as Trump flies the supersonic B-1 B bombers from threatened island of Guam. North Korea basically, within the last week, changed its status from a country that is seeking nuclear capability to a country that is already a nuclear power. What do I mean about that? If the North Koreans had the nuclear capability, and so far their biggest problem was to convert that to a way that they can use it against other countries, which means to create warheads for their ballistic missile, the ICBMs, that can carry that nuclear capability. And recently, military experts and intelligence experts concluded that North Korea has already that capability. So this is a big game changer. North Korea is no longer on its way to become nuclear power. North Korea joined Pakistan and joined India and joined the club that is growing bigger and is now a nuclear power with a capability to fly or to send intercontinental ballistic missiles towards America, Asia, and other parts of the world. So this is a big game changer. This is why the rhetoric, the level is growing higher, and because we're no longer dealing with a country that is just wild. Now, what is the difference between Kim Jong-un and the Iranians, for example? How come Israel is more alarmed regarding Iran capability? For Kim Jong-un, the reason why he wants that weapon is because he truly believes, because that's how all the North Koreans are indoctrinated since they're born. He truly believes that America's first goal is to eliminate North Korea, no matter what. North Korea is the biggest enemy of America, and America will always want to destroy North Korea. So in his mind, this is my weapon to basically stop them from wanting to destroy me. So it's not a religious reason. It's not a calling from God to destroy America. It's literally just like a snake that once it feels threatened, it bites you. That's it. And so we're going to see what's going on. America, by the way, cannot attack right now. At this moment, America has too many things that are at risk. There's tens of thousands of Americans in South Korea, which will have to be evacuated before any military action. America doesn't have also the enough power, and I'm talking about enough bombers and enough air power and air defense power in the region to withstand a massive North Korean attack of rockets and missiles. So either America will have to first evacuate its people and build up massive force there for a strike, or it's all going to be words, play of words, which more fits to what I call the rumors of wars and not wars. But the difference with Iran is that the Iranians feel that it's a mission from Allah to destroy Israel, or to destroy Saudi Arabia, or maybe to even destroy America, which is big Satan. They don't have to wait to be attacked. It's not about being threatened. It's about fulfilling the will of Allah for them. So that's a big difference. That's a religious commandment rather than the attempt to survive. And this is why we need to make sure they don't have that nuclear capability. So watch those things as they unfold. As Ezekiel 38 literally being fulfilled before our very eyes, or at least the preparation for it, even though America became once again a power that called some shots in the area of Syria, the Russians made it clear that they don't want to see America part of the deal. So guess what? Iran, Russia, and Turkey are to meet where? In Tehran, to discuss Syria. Now, isn't that interesting? They could have done that in Ankara or in Moscow, but they chose Tehran so the Americans won't be there, for sure. And they talk as if America is not even in the region. And it's interesting because it says here to broker peace talks, but literally what it's all about is how do we make sure that Americans are not causing us to be out of there. And the Russians already sent thousands of new infantry troops to the area of the Golan Heights, just so you know, on the Syrian side, of course. We've seen that. If we heard Russian on the radio, now we can see them. And also, we know that Russia is selling the S-400 air defense system to Turkey for $2.5 billion. They strike the deal in June. In July, they worked on the details, and it's about to be delivered. $2.5 billion deal about the S-400, the latest version of the air defense system that will detect any aircraft coming from far away and can release rockets to 20 to 40 different airplanes at the same time. This is very sophisticated weapons that we were very much against Iran having it. So now Turkey will have it. So you see the alliance that the Russians are building right now is beyond just Syria, and it's beyond just oil and gas. Literally, Russia is building up an alliance, and it's arming to their teeth their allies over there. Very interesting. So on one hand, the North Korean peninsula, rumors of wars. On the other hand, we see the Ezekiel 38 war being prepared right before our very eyes. Now comes a nice, we speak of bad things and terrible things. Let's speak about something nice. In the northern part of the Sea of Galilee, in the northeastern part of the Sea of Galilee, east of the River Jordan, there's the town of Saida, which is mentioned in the gospel many, many times. This is one of the 3 cities that Jesus rebuked for the lack of faith. This is originally the home of Andrew, Peter, and Philip. And it's interesting because we know from the writings of the historian Josephus Flavius that Herod Philippus, the one who built Caesarea Philippi, who was the son of Herod the Great, he turned Bethsaida into a polis. Polis is a proper city in the Greco-Roman world, and which means it's elevated to a status where it gets more funding, where it has bigger roads and bigger facilities, just like we have cities today in the world. And we know that he was renamed Bethsaida, the Hebrew name, the house of the hunter, Bethsaida Julius. Now, the name Julius is given after the mother of Caesar Tiberias, which was the Caesar at the time of Jesus in Rome, and was the reason for the naming of the city by the Sea of Galilee, Tiberias. And so Julius, just like Herod Antipas named the city Tiberias after Caesar, his brother Herod Philippus named Saida Julius. And it's very interesting why. Why am I mentioning that? For so many years we found their stuff, but there was no immediate connection to the apostles and to the New Testament. And that's not until, and that's of course, this is where Bethsaida is. As you can see, the Sea of Galilee. Tiberias is situated on this side of Galilee. Bethsaida is actually beyond the river on the area of, or what we call Golan Heights today, the Golanites. So that's where Bethsaida is, on the eastern part of the Jordan River. This is where Tiberias on the western side. And we can see that what we had there was not, we found there several things, and it's nice. But what we just found in the last few weeks is something very interesting. We found mosaic floor of a church. Now that church is described in early writings. Look, it says here that the monk Wilbard, later to become the first bishop of Eichstätt in Bavaria, recorded his visit to this inhospitable and dangerous area in the year 725. And the account of his travel says, from Capernaum, they went to Bethsaida, the city of Peter and Andrew, and there is now a church there in the place where originally their house stood. Isn't that interesting? So we just found a church. So if someone more than 1200 years ago, actually almost 1300 years ago, was there seeing a church that everybody knew was built on top, because in those days building churches was actually not just as a house of prayer, but it was to commemorate a specific event or a specific place where things happened before. And so we may have basically found the original location of Peter and Andrew's and Philip's houses. And we know that Peter later on moved to Capernaum to nurse his sick mother-in-law. So that's why for some of you are asking, wait a minute, I thought I've been to Capernaum and that's where Peter's house was. Peter is originally from Bethsaida. And so this is the beautiful thing. We just found it. So on the news, it says we found Julius, but remember, it's the same site of Bethsaida. We just found the part of the Byzantine level, which is in the late Roman and Byzantine level, where things were built right on top of the houses. This, by the way, description is from the book of Paths of Messiah, written by the German Lutheran priest called Bargil Pixner. And so, very, very beautiful, beautiful things. Now comes something that I would like to address. And I know many of you are asking me online, Amir, what about the sign of the eclipse and the sign of Revelation 12 in September? What do you think about that? And a lot of you, or some of you, were offended by the fact that I'm so turned off by all of these things. So let me explain to you what is it that I believe the Lord showed me regarding those things. And do not be mistaken, I believe in the signs. I believe that God is giving signs. I believe in signs and wonders. I believe in signs with the sun and the moons. I believe in all of these things. I believe they exist. I don't dismiss those things as if they're nonsense. But let me explain what I'm talking about. I'm reading from 1 Corinthians chapter 1, from verse 18. For the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. Remember, it's the message of the cross. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise and bring to nothing the understanding of the prudent. That's from Isaiah 29 verse 14. Where is the wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the disputer of this age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of this world? For since in the wisdom of God, the world through wisdom did not know God, it pleased God through the foolishness of the message preached to save those who believe. And now comes the punchline. Listen to this one. For the Jews request a sign, And Greeks, and by the way, in other translation, Gentiles, seek after wisdom. The wisdom, signs. And look what it says. But we preach Christ crucified. To the Jews, a stumbling block, and to the Greeks, which is Gentiles, foolishness. But to those who are called, both Jews and Greeks, to us, the believers, Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. Because the foolishness of God is wiser than men, and the wicked and the weakness of God is stronger than men. So my point is this: God indeed is giving signs, but the signs are for the non-believers. We as believers should stick to the message of the cross. He gave signs. Look, even in Isaiah chapter 7, verse 14, it says, "Behold, I will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel." The prophet Isaiah to the Jewish people, a Jewish prophet to the Jewish people, to the people of Israel, told them, "I will give you a sign. A virgin shall conceive." It wasn't to the believers. It was to the people, so they can believe. Now, that was before Jesus came, 400 years before. Did they believe? No. So the signs, even Jesus said, "Oh, adulterous generation that seeks signs only." You know, the only signs you will see is the sign of Jonah, speaking of himself, of his death and resurrection. But my point is, I'm not dismissing signs. Signs will be there. I mean, the apostles had signs and wonders. We know the Antichrist will pull fire from heaven. I mean, there will be signs and wonders. Signs and wonders are for the non-believers, either to draw them to believe in God or to draw them to believe by the Antichrist in him. But to us, that's why the Bible said, "But we preach Christ crucified." So the believers, instead of being so much into the signs, which are not for the believers, I believe in my, this is what God showed me. We're not to deal with numerology. We're not deal with all of these things. The secret things belongs to the Lord, and those that are revealed belong to us. We need to stick to the gospel, Christ who is crucified. The simple message. That's why in 1 Corinthians, I just quoted from 1 Corinthians chapter 1, but that's why I love how chapter 2 begins. Chapter 2 begins with, "And I, brethren, when I came to you, I did not come with excellence of speech or with wisdom declaring to you the testimony of God." Paul says, I'm not, coming with signs and wonders and wisdom and all of these things. He basically says, "For I determine not to know anything among you except Jesus Christ and him crucified." So we as believers must focus on Jesus Christ, him crucified, what he did for us, what he paid for us, and what he told us regarding the end times. That's it. So, Amir, so what do you think about the signs? The signs will be signs. And they are predominantly, again, signs are for non-believers, to believe maybe. But for us, we don't need the signs. They're not signs for us. We already know what's going to happen. So we don't need to set dates and hour and minute. We know what's going to happen. That's why today we have to be ready. Today we have to make sure that we are okay with the Lord. And yes, as Hebrews says, sin and snares, yes, it's all around. Now, what are we going to do? We have to confess and move forward. We have to put it aside, and we have to run the race that is set before us, looking at Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith. Now watch this. This is cool. Now for the Hebrew guys. This is the Hebrew word for a sign. It's called ot. Ot is a sign. It's comprised of 3 Hebrew letters, Aleph, Vav, and Tav. Ot. Isn't that interesting? Jesus is known as the Aleph and the Tav, the Alpha and the Omega. Aleph, Tav. And watch this. The word ot, sign, has another letter, Vav. You know what Vav is? Vav means end. So the the people that are looking for sign, they're not just looking for Jesus, because Jesus and the gospel, this is a fact. They want they want plus, they want more. And Paul is determined to stick to the Aleph and the Tav, to just Jesus. He's the Alpha and the Omega, he's the Aleph and the Tav. So instead of us looking for a sign, we need to stick with only the Aleph and the Tav. And leave the end to those who needs the end, not us. This is why I'm so much against all of these things. I'm working on a message on Armageddon, which I will share with you when it's ready. And the reason is many people are confused. Let me give you a hint. The battle of Armageddon will not be in Armageddon. And the Bible doesn't say that there will be a battle in Armageddon. So Armageddon is a place. There has to be something there. Things happened there in the past. But again, where will that battle of the last days prior to the return of Christ with us, where will that be? Tune in. Another thing regarding the tribulation. Will the tribulation be with or without us? Of course, we are pre-trib, so we believe we'll be out of here. But why is it that people think it's for the believers? I'm not sure, but we're going to talk about what is the tribulation. What is the Hebrew name of the tribulation, if not Jacob's trouble, which hints of who is going to be in the center of God's dealing at that time. So tune in for that message, very, very important one. Jerusalem, which one is your final destination? Ladies and gentlemen, this city today, Jerusalem, requires your prayers. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem, because it is not a city of peace. It is a city of deception and wars. And even when we will live in Jerusalem for 1,000 years, believe it or not, eventually there will be another war there. As Revelation says, another Gog and Magog over there. So this is not a peaceful place. It may have peace, in certain periods, but it requires our prayer, because the true peace can only come from the Prince of Peace when the Prince of Peace returns. So we need to pray for the salvation of the people so they can know the Prince of Peace and have the true peace. But which is your final destination? Is it this Jerusalem or is it the New Jerusalem? If this Jerusalem is your final destination, then that's very sad. So we're going to talk about that one as well. The name Jerusalem in Hebrew is very interesting also regarding that topic. I want to encourage you to go on Facebook, and we created a group called Behold Israel Bible Studies and Current Events Updates. You can join. We have more than 10,000 members there. This group is a group where we can share more things there, because the main page of Behold Israel is dedicated to news and some of my messages. But in that group, we can talk. We can share things. And so if you want, go ahead and again, it's Behold Israel Bible Studies and Current Events. You will not be accepted to the group unless you read the guidelines and tell us that you read it. Because once you read it, we can add you to the list. We also want to encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Behold Israel. I've added many new messages in the last few months. And once you're subscribed, every time I post a message, you can get a notification, a new message just was posted. In this way, you don't have to be a Facebook user in order to watch my messages. That's why I encourage you. We've got nearly 50,000 people. We're standing almost in 48,000. But I estimate that by the end of the year, we'll reach 60, maybe more. It's not about the numbers as much as the way to bypass Facebook if you're not a Facebook user. Now, for those of you who are interested in not being online at all, just getting stuff in a way of an email, go to our website, beholdisrael.org, and subscribe to our newsletter. Every week you will get a compiled message of news and of ministry updates regarding us. So this is basically it. I'm excited again that I was able to be online with you here this morning here in Israel. Everything is moving to the right place. I mean, although it seems like the world is falling apart, things are falling in their place. So be encouraged today that our race that is set before us is already promising all of us a victory if we keep our eyes on Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith. We need endurance here. We need patience here. Things are not easy. Sin indeed ensnares us from all around, but we have no luxury of falling on the ground and not standing up again. So from Galilee, I would like to pray over you the Aaronic blessing this morning to wrap it up and to wish you a great weekend ahead of you. I will be taking my family to Europe for about 2 weeks. We will be away. I'm not going to be online, hopefully. And but we will continue updating you about news and things that are happening all the time. So let's pray. Father, we thank you and we bless your name today from Galilee, Israel. And let me just pray the Aaronic blessing upon you. Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichuneka. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. The Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord shine his face towards you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance toward you and give you his shalom, his peace. That's the peace we really need. This world cannot give us peace. This world doesn't even understand the peace that surpasses all understanding. In this world we will have tribulations, but be of good cheer. Jesus has overcome this world. Yeshua had won. So we thank you and bless you from Galilee. God bless you and shalom. Bye-bye.